Welcome to Dance Uncorked podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Jean. Thank you for tuning in today. And I am joined by previous student, previous mentee, I guess. I
Yeah.
remember teaching you how to teach at one point.
Yeah.
Friend and just beautiful human being, Lisa B Levin.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. This has been a wonderful experience so far with the episodes, and I'm sure this will be nothing short of excellent and joyful as well. It's so beautiful and amazing to connect with all of you again. And I think I texted you this before. Like, you all continue to amaze me with just who you have become and what you will become. And I'm just so thrilled that you agreed to do this. So thanks again for being here. And thank you for choosing the wine today. You picked a very special wine that I have never had before, and mostly because it's kosher. I've never had kosher wine, and I knew it existed, but I didn't know like what that meant. I've never had it to my knowledge. Like, maybe I have, I just didn't know.
Yeah,
Um,
no, no.
and so we're going to try a kosher wine of your choice today, because you are of the Jewish faith.
I
And
am. Yeah.
yeah, and Passover is very soon, correct?
Yes, it starts Monday and is lasts until the 30th.
Perfect. So for those of you that celebrate this, and are looking for a kosher wine, we will give you some notes on this one. So this is a Cab Sav, or Cabernet Sauvignon, that is from, I believe, I would say you pronounce it Herzog Wine Cellars, or Herzog. And you'll see the pictures and stuff on social of how to spell it and see the label and what that looks like. But this is a 9-generation family wine, and wine business. So it's deep rooted in its history, and it is from a Jewish family. And it started back in the 19th century. And the first person that kind of started doing this in their family, they were from the Trnava region of Slovakia. So it started there. And then, over time, if you end up getting good at something, you start selling it, or people notice you, especially from like court or like higher class people start noticing. And that's kind of like how you move along in time and in success, I guess, with your business or whatever trade you had. So that's what happened. And Rabbi Menachem, maybe. I don't know. I'm probably butchering all of these
I
names.
am enjoying all of this.
And that was the first rabbi that started all of this back in that early 19th century. And over time, things happened, and including World War II, and the Holocaust, and the oppression of the Jewish people in that time period, and the concentration camps and everything that came along with the Holocaust. So some family members were able to survive, and one of those was Eugene Herzog, who ended up, once that war was over, realizing that going back to Slovakia, what now being a communist country, was like maybe not a good idea for him and his family. So he packed up his kids, which were 6 of them, and his wife, and they got on a ship to New York City, and they landed in the
As
States.
we do.
Yes, yes. So it's a classic, American story from immigration, like immigrant American story. And it's really deeply rooted, and it goes back a very long time. So once we get to the States with this particular wine brand, this family member, Eugene, he started working for Royal Wine Company in New York City at the time. And he went up the ranks and ended up buying this place in a 10-year period. He ended up buying it in 1958 and then reopening it as Kadem Winery. So he kind of like, it's the American story. Like, this is a classic representation of what it means to have a dream, come here, seek freedom of some sort, and find it, and actually really be successful. So what they had to do though was that they were in New York City, and it's actually like harder to grow grapes there because of the climate and things like that. So there's the American Concord grape is actually what's available in New York and what was available at the time. So that's what they made their wine out of, and it's bitter if you don't sweeten it. So they started using grape juice to sweeten it. And the Cadem grape juice that came out of this company also is still one of the top selling kosher grape juices in the United States. So not just wine, but like how you make the wine and those ingredients that are going into it, like they've also tapped into, which I think is really interesting. They have many different labels, but the label and the brand that we're drinking today is the Baron Herzog label. And that was established in 1985 by another generation of the family, David Herzog. And he's I think he's still with us. He's not the current vice president, but I think he's still with us and still thriving in this family. And probably a huge, mentor to like a huge guiding light for this company. And they are sourcing their grapes from California. So in 1985 is when they started reaching outward across the nation to start doing their wine from California. So that's where they started outsourcing in 1985, and then they finally went over there. So they actually have a couple of locations as far as vineyards, tasting rooms in California. It's actually a very big company. They have large facilities, and they distribute all over the country. I didn't check my stats on like global distribution, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing that also. Especially just because it's like it was actually really hard to find a kosher wine in the grocery store when I went to look, and I had like that moment of learning. I was like, oh, like this is difficult. Like this would be difficult if this is what you only choose and want to drink. You have very limited selections, and if you have any at all. Which I know, like Lisa, you ran into that. Like you thought it was one place near you, and then it ended up like not being there.
Yeah, stores definitely come and go with the selections that they have for people. You also may have only found it in your store because Passover is right around the corner.
Yeah.
Like they like to be like, oh, Hanukkah's coming up or Passover's coming up. Okay, we'll put it out now. And then you think you can go back and you're like, oh, wait, you don't
Yeah.
have. And it's not just with wine, it's all like kosher products.
Yeah. There's not really like it might be kosher sections in the grocery store, but it's actually pretty limited and I would say under the radar too. Like it's not
Like egg
really
noodles.
publicized, you know. Yeah, I don't know if I want to use the word invisible, but that might actually be the most appropriate word to use here. Just because that's kind of the way it feels when you're trying to find something just
Yeah. And
regular.
it may be where we live.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I've been to New York a bunch of times and it's obviously a lot easier to find
Yeah,
kosher just about anything there. Um,
yeah.
but no, in basically Orlando, Florida, not so easy.
Interesting, because I thought I would have more of a challenge being in Oregon, but I don't know. Like I said, Trader Joe's for me came in clutch today because it was right there and it was dedicated towards Passover. They had a cute little sign that was like for Passover dinner, and I was like, oh, love this, thank you. So I will go back and see if they continue to carry it. I think
Yeah.
that's a really interesting point that you're making. So I'm gonna go check on that. They have their own winery in Ventura County, and I think this Cabernet was bottled and produced in Oxnard, California. So lots of different places. They are very spread out throughout California. They have many different locations. If you're interested in more of that, their website is super informative on like the regions that they're in and the locations. They say something on their website that I really liked. For the Herzog family, making wine is not just a business. It is a privilege that enables them to honor their ancestors with each varietal, each style, each bottle. So this is deeply tied to their family generations and their family history and what that means to them. And they are carrying on the legacy of their family stories through wine. So this is really exciting to try this wine and in the spirit of Passover, and just kind of honoring a different culture and a different religion that I don't practice. But it's really nice to be able to participate. And I appreciate you for opening that door for me to participate with you.
Absolutely. No, and I mean, it's very symbolic of like the Jewish faith. Like the Jewish faith, people who are Jewish are family is a big deal to them. Like it is one of their top values. And it's very fitting for me with this because your whole like season 3 is dedicated to Spotlight Dance Center and they were my family.
Mhm.
Like you guys are my family.
Mhm.
It's like kind of cliche, but you guys were my like and are my chosen family. So it
Yeah.
just felt very fitting. And
I was trying to figure out, I was like, well, what is kosher wine? And even the person at the grocery store, when I was looking for kosher wine, they were like, how do you kosher wine? I'm like, well, here's what I know about kosher wine based on my research. It's wine that's produced per the Jewish dietary laws, and it's permitted to pronounce blessings over and drink it. So, and I believe like a rabbi has to bless it in order for it to be like an actual kosher wine. Do you have anything to add to that?
yes, it has to be blessed by a rabbi. And a lot of people hear about like kosher meats
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, and they don't really think about other food products and
Yeah.
drinks being kosher.
Kosher salt. I use
Yeah,
kosher salt
yeah.
all the time.
A lot of people do.
So is it like, is the salt like blessed? Like how am I using blessed salt? Like, is that what's happening?
Yeah,
Wow. Okay. Maybe that's why my food tastes so good. Okay.
maybe.
They have 25 varietals. And they have, like I said, many, many brands. So we're drinking one varietal under a very specific brand. They have done winemaking for over 150 years. It's very family centered. And this is like a real nice story, and living proof of resilience. I think just the whole history of where they started to how they came to America, and to being one of the largest kosher distributors of wine, in the country and maybe even the world. That's a huge deal. So I'm excited to honor that as we taste this wine. And this cab is supposed to be, based on the bottle and just kind of what I read about it online, elegant and full bodied, like a good cab.
Like me.
And you're supposed to taste some black stone fruit, nutmeg, and a kiss of oak. And I float sometimes. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't want to read the tasting notes yet. Let me see. But I feel like this might be nice to read first and then maybe see if we
I
get
like
something else or
I
not.
like this. I'm usually the same. I kind of like to play the game where I taste the wine and I'm like, I try to guess what it
Yeah,
is, but it's nice to have
some
something to
guidance.
like expect because I myself have never tried this wine.
Yeah.
As you know, I selected a different wine and
Mm-hmm.
they
You
didn't
didn't
have it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try this cab. So this is the cab Sav. Let's give it its smell. It smells like a cab. It's very jammy, fruit
Yeah.
forward, bold. Like there's nothing too subtle about this. So
Yeah.
cheers, Lisa B. Thanks for being here.
Cheers. Thank
Let's
you,
taste this.
Jean.
Ooh, it's a cab. Like
Yeah.
cab.
I'm getting like a wine you drink at a barbecue vibes.
Yeah. It's bold. Like it's not too dark in color either. Like it's actually a pretty it's more on the red side versus
Yeah.
the purpley side, which is nice.
Mhm.
So for being like that's that jammy, I think it matches its jamminess in color.
Am I crazy? Like, do you not taste like barbecue chicken in this?
No, I think like a smoked, you might be tasting what I would describe as like a smoked something or like
Mhm.
leather. Like there's like leather qualities to it. Um, but yeah, or like blackened anything, like when
Mhm.
something's blackened on the grill, like there's that little edge that you taste on the char.
Yeah. No,
Um,
like specifically, I mean, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm crazy.
maybe.
But I am like specifically tasting like barbecue.
Yeah. It's big. It's big enough to be barbecue, like for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I no, I think there's something
It is
like
a big
smoky about it or like
yeah.
char. Like there's definitely, because I smell it too. Like I'm like, yeah, it's like when you're outside a barbecue and you can smell the barbecue smoke like coming
Mhm.
through whatever and just circulating in the space. I
Like I
definitely
kind
think,
of Ooh, go
oh,
ahead.
I was thinking that the black stone fruit is interesting. I'm trying to think of a black stone fruit. Like, is it plummy? I don't know.
No, I'm kind of tasting like blackberry,
Yeah.
like a blackberry.
I definitely, the more I taste it too, the more I'm convinced that you're right. It's very like barbecue,
Like
charred,
I really
smoky.
want to like be sipping this wine by a bonfire.
I know. I want like a kebab right
Yeah.
now, like a
Yes.
kebab
A
stick
kosher
with
kebab.
a kosher kebab stick, with like the chicken or the steak or whatever
Yeah.
that you can eat during Passover, and like put that all on a stick, and then drink this with it, and then yeah, just be around.
Enjoy my best life.
Yeah,
Yeah. I really
it's
like
very
this.
good. It's bigger than I expected it to be, which is really a nice and pleasant surprise.
Right. I feel like Jewish wine has a bad rep because of Manischewitz and
Mm.
like everyone's like joke of grape juice.
You
But
taught me about Manischewitz. Yeah.
but like this is a good wine. Like I hope they do keep it in your store.
I
I,
hope so
I hope they keep
too.
it in my store.
I hope so too. So this is a note for people too. Just maybe like stock up on some of this, because you never know if one of your friends comes over and like maybe they only eat or drink kosher foods year round. Like, cause that's a thing too. Like some people are like, I only do that, you know? Or it might be around Passover where you're having a gathering, but maybe you don't practice it, but if somebody else is, and like it's just nice to have that option. It's like when you have decaf coffee in your pantry. Like always have
Right.
decaf, because you just never know.
And
Um,
I'm the decaf person. So spread the word.
yeah, it's that thing that you, and tea. Like you always have like extra tea, you have decaf coffee, kosher wine, people. Get your kosher wine in your pantries. And I
There
would,
are a lot of Jewish holidays.
yeah, this is really good. Thank
Always
you.
stay prepared.
Thank you for picking this. This is really good. I'm enjoying this. I don't know if
Honestly, was the fact that they didn't have the other wine. It's like
it was
it's
meant to
fate.
be. Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, now let's talk about you, Lisa B. Give me a brief overview of and summary of your dance history, when you started, and then kind of some big milestones in between there. They can be dance or career oriented, and then where you are now and what you are doing now.
Yeah. So I started dancing when I was 4 years old. I was actually in karate with my older siblings, and I started dancing, grew up dancing, turned into teaching, all at Spotlight.
Mhm.
Never went to a different studio. But Spotlight's studio at the time was right behind my uh dojo, if you will.
Yeah.
And so my parents would bring all of us to karate classes, and I was just like begging to go to dance. Every time I would see the studio and I'm like, I just want to dance. I just want to dance. So my parents also would catch me like they had a their bathrooms were kind of weird, like set up, I guess. Like my mom had her bathroom, and then my dad had his own bathroom. And
Mhm.
then there was a room in between them that they turned into a workout room, and it had like full length mirrors.
Oh,
And they would catch me in there all
yeah.
the time, dancing,
Over. Yeah.
singing. And they were like, okay, we have to do it. There's five of us in my family. It was really easy to just take all of us to karate,
Right.
but they were like, okay, this has to happen. So I started dancing, started out doing just ballet and hip hop.
Mhm.
Um, and then that's mostly what I did actually until like high school.
Yeah.
I really didn't stray too far because until I was 12, I also did gymnastics, like pretty
Mm-hmm.
hardcore. So then when I was 12, my mom was like, okay, I have 5 kids. Like, I need you to choose something because we're running out of like vehicles and we can't
Yeah.
drive you everywhere. So I
Are you
just
the
chose,
youngest?
no, I have a younger brother.
Younger brother.
There's
Okay.
3 above me. I have 2 older sisters, then
Okay.
my older brother, then it's me, and then I have a little younger brother,
Got it. Okay.
not little.
Right.
Um, he's 6'3", so definitely not little.
No.
And for reference, I'm in a chair for everybody else, but I am 5'4".
Yeah.
So definitely not little brother.
Yeah.
But so I chose dance and I continued dancing. And then in high school, um, I ventured out and did jazz
Yeah.
for like my senior year.
Yeah.
And I don't, well, I did point to for a few years, but I was like in love really with hip hop. That
Mhm.
was my favorite thing in the world. Um, but I never like wanted to be a dancer. I just had like I had a passion for dance. I loved dancing in general, but I actually thought growing up I wanted to be a psychologist.
Yep.
So senior year happens.
Yeah.
I have my senior recital. I say my goodbyes on stage. I was the only senior that year,
Uh-huh.
and Peter and Margaret every year for the seniors would like line everyone up and do like a little speech for them. Well, it was just me. I
Right.
was the only one, and uh, I packed my bags and I went to Gainesville.
Yep. I
And
remember this. Yes.
over this over the summer, they were like, "Hey, we're doing fashion shows. We're dancing in fashion shows with Macy's.
Oh yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Can you help choreograph and do it?" And I was like, I guess, like, why not? Um, so my classes in Gainesville started, and I had classes Tuesdays and Thursdays. I would drive to Gainesville Monday night. The second I was out of class on Thursdays, I'd drive back to Orlando
Mhm.
because it was like just the Macy's in the Orlando area. So that lasted 3 weeks before I was like, I'm dropping out and moving back because I
I
can't,
remember this. I
I
remember.
can't not dance.
I do remember this. Like yeah, you left and then I was like, but you're still here. Like what's
But
happening?
you're
I thought,
like, yeah.
and you're like, just kidding.
But
Okay.
that was the trend with
Yeah.
Spotlight. Like even through the pandemic, it was like, okay, this is your last year teaching. And I was like, yeah, I'd come back every time.
They
So
really back in. Yeah.
yeah.
We've
So
all
I
done
would
it. I did it
right.
too.
So I would come back for the fashion shows. And at the end of the summer and the fashion shows, they were like, "Do you want to teach?" And I was like, "Well, you already got me back. So yeah,
Yeah.
sure, why not?" But I specifically wanted to teach the younger kids. I love working and always loved working with younger kids. Wanting to be a psychologist, I wanted to work with kids. I wanted to do kid psychology. So they were like, but you've never, all of our kids classes are like combination classes of ballet tap jazz and hip hop tap. Enters Lindsay Jean. So, so we did our private tap lessons
Yep.
where you were like, okay, well, we're gonna get to it. So we did our tap lessons for what, like 6 months? Was it a
Yeah.
full year? I don't even know.
It was like a mix because I remember doing privates, but then I was teaching an adult tap class at the time, and you would come into that too because I
Yeah,
was like come into any time you have the opportunity to learn tap, like just be here. So
right.
jumping
And
in.
I did it. I was like, I'm all in, went, let's go.
Yeah.
So we did that, and I was also shadowing you
Hmm.
in like for the first at least like few months. And it really worked out because I think that was the year you got married.
Hmm.
But then I also like you got to get married and whatever break you took, I just kept
Yeah.
teaching your class.
Uh-huh.
And then I ended up teaching for about 10 years.
Yep.
Totally unexpected.
Yeah. Gosh, what a long time. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, because you carried the flame for me
Mm,
when I moved out here. I was like, okay, you're going to take these classes and you're just going to, and a lot of those kids went to your class like after
right.
they were done with me.
Well, and I was thinking about it, and like, I mean, when I was growing up, we had a lot of our teachers like were consistent teachers,
Yes.
but I feel like once really before you started, actually, I was still, you started teaching when I was in,
You were a
I,
peanut.
yeah, I think I was like your youngest student.
Well, that's the thing that I remember the most about you in particular is like you're a part of what I call the OG group. Like when I was 18 years old and jumped into my first class there and taught
Yeah.
hip hop or whatever, or the competition group. Like you were a part of that class, but you were the youngest and smallest one in there.
Yes.
And
I
I
was,
remember being like, who's this kid?
why are you here? Yeah, no, because I started taking like the advanced classes when I was 12.
Yeah.
And everyone else was like 16, 17, 18.
Yes.
It was me and Sophia. And
Yeah,
Sophia
you guys were the
year,
younger ones for
she's
sure.
a year older than me. And so I think when you started, I think I was in sixth grade.
Yes. That sounds about
And um it was just like that time period we struggled when before you came in keeping a teacher,
right. Hmm.
and then you were like the next consistent one.
Yeah.
And then me.
Yeah.
Like I was really the next and only
Yeah.
consistent one.
Yeah, I think you and I
And
think I'm talking to
Teresa.
Carla later this season as well, but like Carla also, she's kind of got a similar story as you were like starting as a student and then filtering into an instructor position at the studio that you learn dance from,
Yeah.
which is like a really special thing, I think. And because you were able to still, while you had consistent instructors, you were still able to kind of pick and pull from the ones that did come in and out.
Right.
So it made you a unique instructor. You weren't just a carbon copy of me, and Carla wasn't a carbon copy of Peter, and things like that.
Right.
Like everybody kind of had their own flair because of the opportunities everyone had
Hmm.
in the spotlight. So
But I mean, like, I mean, I disregarded Teresa, and I shouldn't
oh
have, because Teresa was there.
yes,
Probably Teresa grew up teaching there, and
yeah.
then taught. I
Well,
think she taught until,
she was a student there too, right?
yeah, she grew.
Yeah.
Did I say she grew up teaching there?
Well,
She grew
she
up
grew up
teaching.
dancing, and then
Yes.
she taught for the three of us. Yeah, I remember that
Yes.
circulation. Yeah.
But like
Full
thinking
time.
about the different teachers that, made it to that like 8, 9, 10 year mark, it was not common
I
besides
don't
Margaret.
I don't think it's common in a lot of studios. Like there are going to be a few people, like
Mm,
there will be a few people at every studio that have been there over that decade mark. But I would say that it was really special about Spotlight that we had teachers there for a long time.
right. And it
And
was really the culture that Peter and Margaret made for us. Like
yeah,
I never wanted to leave. I
yeah,
never wanted to leave as a student. I never wanted to leave as an instructor. Like COVID made me leave.
yeah,
Period.
yes. Yeah. So what are you doing now? Like where did your career take you?
So actually just before COVID, while still teaching at Spotlight, it started to get kind of hard to teach there because I started running events at Universal Studios.
Hmm.
A lot of mostly their corporate events, but Mardi Gras, Halloween Horror Nights,
You were busy.
concerts. It was a lot.
You were busy.
And events happen at night when dance classes happen.
Hmm.
So I started to have to teach less and less the more I got involved there. And then I was teaching, I mean, I would work at Universal until like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, Friday night. And to keep Spotlight in my life, I would go in and teach Saturday mornings at like 9, 10 o'clock. And I'm like, like I'm like barely breathing coming out of the classes, and I'm like, but I'd go home and I'd sleep, and I'm like, okay, well, this is my life.
Yeah.
Um, but right before COVID, it was another one of those like fate things. I took a month off, the month of December off of 2019. My brother got married. There was a lot going on, like we had to go do stuff for the wedding, and I just wasn't like happy at Universal anymore. I was getting older. I couldn't do those crazy hours anymore. Not that I'm old now,
No, but
but
it's a lot. Yeah.
right. I wasn't 20 anymore.
No.
I was like 24. But but I was just like, this isn't, I need to like take a break to figure out what I want to do.
Mhm.
And in the midst of that, I was like, why am I not working at my family's company? Because
Mhm.
we own our own company. We manufacture playing cards and games and a lot of things now, actually. But at the time, it was playing cards and games.
Yeah.
And so I had worked like part-time with my family's company throughout the years, and and then my brother moved from, he went to UF, University of Florida, um, then moved to New York for a year and worked on Wall Street, and
Mhm.
then was like, see ya, I'm going to take over the family business.
Okay.
Literally calls my dad at like 3 o'clock in the morning and is like, hey, I'm taking over, you're fired in 6 months, by the way. So my older brother was there, my dad was there, and I was like, you know what,
Mhm.
let's give this a try.
Yeah.
And I've been there ever since. I am the one of the vice presidents of the company, and I head all of our, we're not like we don't do sales,
Mhm.
but I head all of our sales team, project managers, I do our accounting, um, kind of have my hands in everything as you do when you're an owner.
Mhm.
Um, my brother mostly runs things. My dad co-runs it and does all the marketing. And then 2 years ago, my younger brother graduated from UF and he's now working with us. So it's just a great time. Just I see my family every day.
Okay. So this is a multi-generational thing, similar to this
Yeah,
wine that I'm seeing a lot of like parallels in how
yeah,
this played out, and I love that for you. I love that you get to work for your family because I know how much you love your family.
I do. Yeah.
And how much they were like a part of it. They were a part of the studio like all the time. I remember like seeing your brothers come in and out sometimes, and
My
um,
dad would come in and Peter would be like, Charlie,
yeah,
and just like would
yeah,
love seeing my dad.
like 11's here.
My brother,
Yeah,
my brothers would help like film things during the recitals.
yeah.
They are both very tall people. So Peter was always like, Johnny, get this. That's my younger
Yeah,
brother.
yeah, I
Pe-
remember this.
Peter had a very special relationship with my younger brother. He growing up, they actually Spotlight had summer dance camps. And one year my younger brother did the dance camp.
I remember this story.
And and Peter walks in and my younger brother is just going across the studio licking the mirror. So naturally,
Honey,
he became Peter's favorite person ever.
the mirror liquor.
Yes. And
All right, Lisa B. So tell me, give me your top two dance superpowers that you think have helped you along the way, both I mean, in your teaching career, I mean, that was a huge part of your career thus far, but your time at Universal that you were talking about, and even now as vice president of your family's company, and what that means as far as how your dance superpowers showed up for you when you needed them.
I think the biggest two, I mean, both of them are like super big, especially being an owner of the company with my family. I will say, and I think you've talked about this in your podcast before, like just the environment that Peter and Margaret created for everyone. Sophia, their daughter, um, and Josh, their son, grew up dancing at the studio.
Mhm.
And I really learned from them uh, the importance of not allowing nepotism to take place in the workplace.
Mm,
Um, they were very good about treating everyone equally. If there were no favorites, they did not treat their kids any differently.
mhm.
They didn't put them at the front of the class all the time. They often compared them to other people, being like, why you need to do it like Lisa, or you need to do it like this person. And
And they would
that's,
get in trouble too.
yeah,
They got in trouble too.
we got in trouble. So
Y'all were
Sophia and I
bad.
would get in trouble, not in trouble,
Right.
but
Trouble.
we would take ballet together and be at bar, and she's one of my best friends, and we would talk, and Margaret would always have to be like, Lisa, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, and she would yell Sophia's name just the same. Um, but that's really, that's one of the biggest things that I hold on to now working at my company, especially such a small, like we are still a small business. It is hard, especially with like, it's not just me and one other person. Like, my mom works in our shipping department.
Hmm.
My cousin works in our shipping department. Like, my best friend works in production. Like, and learning that lesson to really treat everybody equally and respect everybody, and not show favorites.
Yeah.
um I think I can speak for all dance instructors. Like, you're gonna have a favorite,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily the person who's the best dancer. There's going to be the people who respect you the most. Like, they show you the most respect. They make the effort, and they really make the impact on you.
Hmm.
And then there's going to be the students that they're just there because their parents put them in the class, or maybe they thought they liked it, or maybe they're trying, but it's like, it's just not their thing.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have favorites. It's gonna happen. That's life. Like, it's natural, but not to treat being aware of yourself
Mhm.
and not treating them as such to make it worse for the other students in your class or for your other employees.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. Like, my mom is not an owner of the company. My parents got divorced when I was in high school. She
Hmm.
is just an employee
Right.
at our business. I cannot treat her any differently than
Hmm.
I treat anyone else.
Right.
You lose all respect. And
Hmm.
um so that is one of the biggest things I've taken away from not only growing up dancing, but then also becoming a teacher there. Uh, I had to work in what they taught me and what I observed from them growing up into my teaching, which then helped me transition, not just at my family's company, but also working at Universal. I was in a upper level position.
Hmm.
So I can't show favorites there either.
Hmm.
Like, that's really important. Um, and I think also one of, if not even more important than that, I really learned self-confidence
Hmm.
growing up dancing. Um, the dance world can be harsh,
Hmm.
very, very harsh. And I really, growing up, we've talked about how, Spotlight was not one of those like hugely competitive
No.
studios. But when I was growing up taking dance classes, we did do some competitions.
Hmm.
So I kind of got like a glimpse of that life. And I'm so glad that that's the studio that just so happened to be behind my karate, like, dojo, whatever it's called. I think it's a dojo. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because while I am a very competitive person,
Hmm.
I would not have enjoyed
Yeah.
doing competitive dancing nearly as much as what Spotlight offered me.
Yeah.
And I am one of those types of people. I am very hard on myself. And I I think being part of Spotlight, like, and just the environment, not only Peter and Margaret created, but you created, and everything, it I learned how to take constructive criticism, and I had confidence in myself and I would tell myself, I can do this. Like,
Hmm.
you guys were so encouraging, and it wasn't like because it wasn't a very competitive studio, there wasn't this like I don't know, like almost like dark cloud always of being like, okay, I have to be perfect every single
Yeah.
time.
I think what you're talking about in both of these, like the importance of treating people equally and not, you know, putting their kids at the forefront and whatnot. And then also this self-confidence that you gain from being at like a less competitive studio. I think what you're really talking about here is like the pressure. Like they didn't slam on the pressure to
Right.
their students, to their own children. Like they never put pressure. I think Josh only danced with us for a little bit, and he was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and they were like, okay, bye. Like it was fine. And if Sophia ever made that decision, I know they would have treated that just as equally too. um but she ended up going the route of like, I do want to dance professionally. So then
Right.
then they took her down a different path, but it was still without this like pressure that
Mhm.
I find so often at other places, and what can happen so easily in anything that's competitive, right? Like any sports, soccer moms are crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like they're nuts. And it's any competitive activity. Like it's so easy to build this like atmosphere of pressure. And I think they were really good at gauging that, because you weren't without it either. I felt like we knew, and we all as instructors too, like went off of their lead, like when to put the pressure on and when to pump the brakes, and like
Right.
when was too much versus like not, because they come from a professional dancing background. Like they
Mhm.
worked for years as professional dancers, so they understand that pressure, but they never let it like infiltrate to a level where it was just like so in control.
Right.
Both from like how they treated their own children who are part of this business that they were running, and also like part of the activities with other children in the space.
Mhm.
And then also like for the students that were coming in and out of their studio doors, they knew how to put on the pressure when it was appropriate and when it was needed for like a learning purpose, not
Right.
for just the sake of winning or for the sake of like doing something to be successful. Like I felt like it was very like we did our own thing at all times. Like we walked into these competitions knowing that we are not a competitive studio, and we like did our own thing. I thought that was always really special too. Like we always kind of had this like air about us and this vibe when we went to these competitions where we were like, they do this all the time. We're not. We're here. We're excited. We're
Right. We're just relaxed
and
and
like
having
maybe
fun,
we'll win. Like who knows?
which is which is crazy because like we won. We would win. Like we would win.
It's okay. Yeah.
We won. And like one year we won one of the competitions and we went to Chicago and
Right.
we competed there. Like we won. So it wasn't like it wasn't this like super laid back, like,
No.
oh, it doesn't matter what you're if
Yeah.
you're messing up, like they will correct you. But it it was the way that they would correct. And it also was not just them, but it was because of the atmosphere that they created and the teachers that they cultivated and everything. Even before me, you were included in that, but before you, it was they would hire people that had the same values and where it was like, I'm not going to just tell you what to do. Let me hold your hand if you were young enough, but like, let me hold your hand and do it with you.
Or
And
even if
I,
you're older, like
right,
sometimes that's what you needed. And it was just like,
right,
we got this. I know life is stressful, and this is supposed to be a place where you can have fun at
right,
the very top of the list, right? Like we want you to have a happy experience here. And even if your experience is hard, it's not a negative hard. It's like a growth. Like you
right,
need to be
exactly.
growing.
I remember I would I would be sick and I'd still go like, I'm like, "No, I wanna go to dance." And I would go sit in the front like, I could not physically dance because I would be sick.
Mhm.
Pre-COVID, I would be wearing a mask
Yeah.
at the front of the sitting at the front of the class, learning what they were learning,
Mhm.
and so that I would film it, and I'd be like, "Okay, well," because I want like, they really created an environment that I just wanted to be at. I never wanted to miss class. I
Yeah.
never wanted to be away from that. I would leave like, I'd get out of high school at, like, 2:15, 2:30, The studio would open at 5. I'd be there until 10.
I think that's a good point too that you're making right now. Like it, because I like it was really challenging, and I think it's a consistent challenge that all instructors have, like to get all of your students in one place at one time all the time. Like that's really hard actually, and a little bit not realistic, right? Like because especially I would say, especially even more so now, like it's so important that children are involved in so many things, and like because they want to be, or because of other reasons, like they think it's going to help them get into college or whatever, right? So like I think that what you're saying here is really important, because you're saying like a lot of the challenges I had with you all not being there, it wasn't because you didn't want to be there that you didn't come. It was because you had like so many, like you always had choir, you guys had this and you had this, and like you were just like, oh, I want to be in 3 places at once, especially here, but I can't because I'm busy. So I think it's really important to like say out loud that because of the environment that was created, you all, when you didn't come to class, it wasn't because you didn't want to be there.
Right.
And I think that
I
there are
never
places out there where that is actually the case. Like there are
right.
students like, I don't want to go because I hate it, you know?
No, I literally, you could not keep me away from the studio. Like, I was taking it back to my parents had 5 kids to cart around and everything. I would get picked up and dropped off by a neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
I found the way.
Carpool. Yeah.
Right. I found the way to get there.
Yep.
And I would sit, classes for like kids would
Mm-hmm.
end, roughly around like 7, 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was younger, and I would just sit there and wait for my brother's baseball practices to be over. And then I'd do my homework in the lobby.
Yep.
And that's what it took to be able to take dance.
Yeah.
And I was happy to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I could not have imagined my life any differently. And again, I was never like, oh my God, I want to dance when I grow up. I just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Like in your position now, like as vice president, you have to have a self-confidence, right? Like you're an owner of a business, and that comes with an expertise at this point, right, in what you do. So what type of like self-confidence moments can you recall where you like think that was actually because of dance? Like I know how to do that. And I mean for me, for example, it's like getting up in front of people
Mhm.
to speak to them, and to do that in a way where even if like on the inside I'm like freaking out, and also like I don't really know what I'm talking about, but like I have to exude as if I do, or else like they're not going to buy into what I'm saying right now. That's the kind of performative technique that I think dance has like taught me, when it comes to like speaking confidently to a group of people or something. So in your vice president role, like has that come out for you in any specific way?
Um, for sure. Not in the same way as you, because as you know, I've always been a pretty outgoing person.
Yeah.
I have never.
I believe you were the first one to introduce yourself to me on my first day. You're like, "Hi, I'm Lisa B.
Yeah.
I'm in your class. I love hip hop."
Yep.
Like, oh,
Um,
okay.
I've always been super outgoing, and I won like the oration contest in like 5th grade or something. Like, I've always felt very comfortable being in front of an audience, talking to
Mhm.
people. But I think the biggest thing that I learned that really helps me at my job now is I know how to speak to people.
Mm,
Like, teaching dance specifically taught me how to not only teach so many different types of people and
mhm.
their like adjust to their learning styles,
Yeah.
but I taught literally all ages.
Mhm,
Like, my main focus was mostly like 3 to about 12, 13-year olds,
mhm.
but they would throw me into a subbing an adult class.
Yeah.
And like, I was one of the few teachers that, and I think that's why like I compared myself to you earlier. Like you, I was one of the few teachers that taught every style,
Yeah.
and I could teach every style.
Mhm.
A lot of the other teachers, they
Good
just
thing.
taught hip hop or just taught ballet or um so they really knew if somebody called out or somebody couldn't make it, or if somebody was going on vacation, Lisa can cover, no big deal. So because I worked with so many different ages, I really learned how to approach, constructive criticism. I learned how to read people's body language when like maybe they weren't liking the way they were getting spoken to.
Mhm.
Um, or they're not maybe understanding the way I'm teaching the general class. So then while the class is like working on things, I go and kind of teach them a little differently. So
Yeah.
I apply that same thought to people at my company, and especially the people that I'm training that runs our project management, or like our graphics team when I'm, correcting some of the things that they may be doing. There's all different ages at my company. We have graphic artists that are in their 60s, and then we have a graphic artist that is in their 20s.
Right.
So I really learned how to approach people in, providing that constructive criticism, just talking to them in general, relating to them, making sure that they feel comfortable in at my business, just like I wanted to make sure, getting students for an hour a week, that's hard to make them feel comfortable so
Yeah.
quickly in
Yeah.
your class. So I really learned how to, relate to people at all different ages very quickly.
Mhm.
So I'd say that's like my number one superpower at work.
Like confidence in communication styles, like how
Right.
to communicate differently to different people of different ages, different backgrounds, different genders. Like it all matters, like, right?
Yes.
Because not everybody communicates the same way or receives communication in the same way. So I think that's pretty cool. Yeah.
But I ended up getting my degree in hospitality management. And
Mhm.
the classes that I learned, like the classes I took there in like managerial classes, and then working at Spotlight teaching, and then being in a, technically management position at Universal, all of that really helped me. And I can actually like manage a team now.
Yeah.
There is a big difference. Like just because you are very intelligent, just because you started a company,
Mhm.
you may not necessarily be a good manager.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yep.
I think that was also another thing, a big thing I learned from Peter and Margaret. Yes, they were amazing dancers. They
Mhm.
started this amazing dance studio, but they were also very relatable and made people feel comfortable very quickly and knew how to talk to people,
Yeah.
especially Peter. Like he's a master.
He is.
Like and like having him as my like first mentor with that, and seeing how he interacted with people and just the respect that he gave people no matter who they were, it really taught me like how to take that into my classes, into Universal, into life.
Yeah. No, I feel like you've branched into like a third superpower, and it's like the power of communication. And just being able to communicate broadly to a variety of people, and in a short amount of time, in a long period of time, because it's weird, right? Like the act of teaching at a studio is very strange because the time you have with them on a weekly basis is so short, but it
Mm.
adds up for like we're together from like September to like June. Like it's a
Mhm.
long time. So it adds up over time, and it's a weird dichotomy of like this short long, and how do you communicate with this like ever flexing timeline that you're on.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge superpower that you kind of dug up in this conversation for yourself. Like yes, you have self-confidence, but then there's this like power of communication, to like broad communication, that specifically dancers and dance educators have, because you have to do these things in a weird timeline. And you're dealing with all kinds of people, right? Like Peter is like the Jedi communicator when it comes to Spotlight Dance Center. He had to talk to so many kinds of people, not just parents, not just students. There were people that wanted that space for rehearsal. So he's also talking to people in the entertainment business, and like yeah, like he had a huge clientele, right? So he learned probably at a very young age, knowing Peter, like how to kind of like navigate that. And it permeated through the studio too, and then in the people they hired, they were looking for that as well. And if you didn't have it right away, they taught you how to do it, which is
Yeah.
something that they enjoyed too.
You
Like,
just spend a little bit more time with them.
yeah, like I think at one point Miss Margaret was like, "You have to teach 3-year-olds, Lindsay." And I was like, I don't want to teach the 3-year-olds, Miss Margaret. And she was like, "I will help you all year long. Like, I will not leave you out to hang dry. Like, I will help you. It's not, I know you're not going to like it, but you have to do it. Like, you have to do it to be a better teacher." And I was like, all right. And I did. I hated it. I hated teaching the 3-year-olds just because that's such a challenging age for attention span. Like, their brains are in a really interesting place as far as like development goes. So but
That was like my wheelhouse though.
I know it's so different for
It's so
people. Like,
funny.
my sweet spot was like 6 to 7 year olds. That was my sweet spot as far as ages go. I think it still is today. I don't know what it is, but it's just that point in their development is where I really like jam and it's like a reciprocal joy. It was not reciprocal at 3 years old. Like, you're just like, what is happening right now? Because they're going through so much cognitively, and in their bodies too. But Miss Margaret, like, yeah, that year was tough, but she was just like, keep going and like try this and like and like she would check in on me because she knew that was like a challenging thing. So if you fell short in one area, Peter and Margaret were always really good about trying to help you, give you the resources to like be able to do what you want to do. You expressed that you wanted to teach, and they needed you to teach like in the age group. So they were like, hey, you need to learn how to take tap or to teach tap then. So
Yeah.
let's get you hooked up with Lindsay, and we're going to get you those, like, let's do it.
Right.
And
Well, and it goes back to like they would hold your hand through the process, whatever hand holding means to you. Like,
right.
they would make sure that you are comfortable, that you can successfully like teach or go up on the stage or whatever it is. They were really there as support.
Yeah. 100% for everyone at the studio, and including their faculty, which I think is really really one of the like the cornerstones of their business. It is hard to find a place where owners, managers like really support the people that are working for them, and that those people feel that support in an authentic way. I
That
think
is key.
like, yeah,
authentically feeling it. Yes.
and I mean, otherwise none of us would have stayed as long as we did.
Right.
And if it wasn't authentic. So that was something really special, and something that I've always carried with me too, is like, I really value authenticity with the people I work with. And if you don't have that, like, I don't want to work with you.
Right.
Like,
well, and
I don't want to do
like that you're saying this too, because in talking to people and telling them like my story and then talking about Spotlight and stuff, they're like, well, of course you like them. Like, you grew up dancing with them. And so like you're the perfect example, and people like you're the perfect example where it's like they didn't treat me this way as their employee because I grew up dancing there.
Right.
Like, they treated me once again just like every other instructor that came in, whether they grew up there too, or whether they only worked there for a year.
Yeah, and they honored the fact that you've been there for so long. Like, I felt like they always honored that about you and your family. And I think Danae even said that she was like, it didn't just stop at me, like it extended to my family too.
Right.
Like, it was an outreach beyond just the studio walls, that they were able to kind of cultivate this environment of support for
Yeah.
everybody. And I
Yeah.
think that is important. Yeah, that authenticity piece is really the key. And I think that shows up for me to this day. Like if I have to work with you and you cannot operate authentically with me, I don't want to work with you. That's in the
Right.
dance context. That is in the work career context.
That's if
That
you're
is
my
in
friend.
like,
Like, I
yeah,
don't want it.
that's in like, if I need to hire a plumber too. Like if I meet you to get a quote on something and I get a weird vibe of inauthentic, if I think
Mhm.
you're lying to me or you're not telling me the whole truth, I'm like, out, get out. Like this is
Yeah.
not gonna work out for me. Because I need someone that's gonna be real and someone who's going to like just really show all, like if I'm going to show all of my cards on the table, like I need you to meet me there too and show me your cards. And
I just got a little triggered with my business. Cards.
forgot about that. Oh my
All my
God.
cards are on the table.
Right. Oh my gosh, Lisa B, thank you so much for sharing all of this with me and with our listeners that are going to tune into this episode. And I will link everything about our wine together.
Heyo. Happy Passover, everybody.
Happy Passover. And is there like a special saying that you say when like Happy Passover? Is that how you say it? I don't know. I'm making this
Happy
up.
Passover.
Happy
That's
Passover.
all
Shalom, right? I don't know.
I
Just
know.
shalom. Mazel tov. That's another thing, isn't
That's like
it?
a congratulations.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll say that after Passover.
We made it.
Yeah, we did it. Yay. We had our kosher wine at the table. We found it at the store. But this was really delicious and this was a wonderful conversation. And I'm so proud of you. I say this to all of my students, but I really do mean it. Like I am always floored by all of you and how intentional and mindful and caring and thoughtful you are, and also like very hilarious still, and just like that full personality that I got to know as children. It's only made you better as a human being moving forward. And I mean, you picked out this wine and like like yeah, like just this, I was like, this is just so wonderful. Like you guys are so amazing. You were then and you were now, like you are now, and I cannot wait to see like what other cool things you end up doing because of your amazingness. So I'm very proud of you. And you always have me to lean on if you need it, and I know that everyone else at Spotlight feels the same too, if you ever need anybody. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you. We are only the way we are because of people like you that we had in our life and people like Peter and Margaret. I mean, there's a reason why we can get on these calls or like be in a Facebook chat and just automatically be like, I love you so much. Like,
yeah, no, I think in the chat when I reached out to initially to all of you, because I just roped y'all into one chat, I was like, let me just wrangle them all up.
just bring it all in.
um you were just like, this chat is iconic, and I was like,
It, it
it is
is. It is iconic. And just Spotlight was iconic. You were iconic.
thanks,
Like
Cal.
you leaving, I mean, like I called you Mama Lindsay and you were like my fourth mom. Like,
Yeah, I feel like I don't have any kids. I don't plan on having kids, but I feel like I have had the privilege of having so many kids. And you were one of them for sure. You were one of my first, actually. You were
yeah.
one of my first babies, the OG babies for sure, and many more after. And I've had the privilege of, just being a very small part of your life, but it was significant.
But
Um,
you were also a very big part of my life.
oh,
Like you specifically, you, Peter and Margaret, like because of how I grew up and just like the big family, but also kind of being like an outsider in my family. And like you and Peter and Margaret were beyond like my mentors. Like you really were like my comfort in so many times. And I'm gonna cry, but
well, we love you.
truly, but
Yeah.
like no, like you said, like you'll always be there for me. Like I will always be here for you, whether it's to watch Lucille
Yeah,
and feed her raw meat
she misses you. She told
or
me yesterday.
or anything. You know, we really did create a family there.
It's special. It was completely special. And I'm really happy that we had this opportunity to kind of reflect on that and to get it on video, like to get it down in history. Like, I mean, that's such like a silly thing to say, but it's true. Like we have this documentation now of like this place that was so significant in both of our lives. So
I
um,
feel like weird. I've been smiling this whole time, and I'm like, I haven't smiled this much
I
probably since being
know.
on stage. Like,
So like after that first episode, I was like, this season's gonna break me. Like
yeah.
nothing. I don't know if I can continue after this season because like how do you? It's like up way up here. Like it's
Donna is also iconic.
yeah, like it's iconic. I don't know, like go out with a bang, like at the high peak point, like I don't it can't get any better than this. This is like my favorite thing to do is to reconnect with all of you. And it brings me
I'm so
more
excited.
joy.
I'm so excited to keep watching your episodes, not just this season, but like this season in particular.
Yeah. Our love letter to Spotlight. Yes,
Yes,
that's what I'm calling it. That's actually, I think, what the season is really called is the love letter to Spotlight Dance Center.
I
So,
love it.
yeah, well, thank you for joining me. Cheers.
Thank
And
you
we'll
for
see
having
you
me.
next time,
Cheers.
everybody.